Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Reds fan channel. I'm Stu, your host. I'm here this morning hosting the first Monday morning episode, show, whatever you want to call it. And this is going to be a permanent fixture on the Monday morning with myself, where I'm going to go over the highlights of the weekend, any transfer news, all that sort of stuff. And today we're going to talk mainly about Liverpool's young talent and what sort of sales and such like we can get, what sort of money we could get for them, whether they go at all. But before we go any further, make sure you do leave a like on this video, you subscribe to the channel. We are currently sitting at 781 subs and we are well on the road to 1k now, and we need you to hit that subscribe button for us to get there. Now, before I go on to the main topic of conversation, there has obviously been a bit of news over the weekend regarding various other transfers before we go into the main subject. So I'm going to cover a few bits and pieces first. First one on my list is going to be Nunez to Napoli. Is that going to happen? Is it not? Well, by what I can understand at the moment is that the contract issue is not an issue at all. Nunez is happy with what Napoli are offering, but it comes down to that figure. Now, we all know now what a bulldog Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards are when it comes to transfer valuations and how they like to spend. But obviously, they also like to get their money in as well. And it seems to be a little bit of a difference between our valuation and Napoli's valuation. They need to meet somewhere in the middle. I'm still fairly confident that this will go through. Whether it's going to be for the price that we expect or not, I don't know. It's going to be a difficult one. Let's face it, we're never going to get the 85 million that we paid for him initially. But if we can get over 50, I think that will keep all parties satisfied. Fingers crossed. Guess it's just a watch this space and see what happens. The next one I'm going to cover very, very briefly as well is another little rumor going around about Luis Diaz, whether he's going to go to Saudi now that we've told Barcelona what the price is, and Barcelona are like, yeah, you can't spend that amount of money. Yeah, we're going to go and fork out ton loads of money on Nico Williams' contract. Go figure. But Diaz to Saudi Arabia, Al Ittihad, I think it was, and they were looking at like 85 million euro bid. Now, all being said, Diaz, really good player, and I've said it before on this channel and various other channels as well, that Diaz is a good player, but he's not irreplaceable. An 85 million euro bid, if that actually does come in, I think we'll take that and we'll go and get somebody else. Because at the end of the day, we've got the money to do it. I do think Diaz could end up going by the end of the summer, but at the end of the day, it's down to the player as well. And unlikely to get a new contract at Liverpool. I think, if anything, we could still get him out, or we could have him for another season and then probably sell him at the end of the next season, get a bit of money for him. But there's every possibility with that sort of price on the table, and if they're prepared to offer it, they'll more than likely accept it. And Diaz will get an absolute whopping great big contract when he goes out to Saudi. That's the end of the day, that's down to him. That's his decision whether he wants to go there or not. But every player has their price. And finally, let's say before we go on to the main topic of conversation, is Mark Gahey, Joao Hato. Now, by the looks of it, Gahey wants to come to Liverpool. The contract side of things and the game time side of things, I think, have been rectified very, very early. It looks like he has been given certain guarantees of his game time. Obviously, with the World Cup coming up next year, he doesn't want to miss out on his England spot. But personally, I don't think he'd miss out on it anyway. I actually think he's probably the best English centre-back that we've got at the moment. So I think he's pretty much a guaranteed, barring any mishaps. He'll end up going to the World Cup next year regardless anyway. But I can understand it from his perspective. He wants to make sure he gets that game time anyway. I think he'd be an absolutely excellent signing, very much a long-term signing, and I do see him as a potential replacement for Van Dijk a couple of years down the line. Excuse me, that was the wind going through my blinds. If you heard that, that was not me. Definitely not me. Gahey, though, yeah, as I say, he's a replacement. He is a replacement for Van Dijk. I do see him as a long-term replacement as that left-sided centre-back partnership, but he'll probably end up playing on the right as well, depending on what happens with Koante as well. But then we have the issue of then, if he is going to replace Koante in that right-hand side of the spot, we still need a replacement for Van Dijk on the left-hand side. That's going to be Hato. And just before I come on to the main topic of conversation about obviously generating income for the club as well now, Hato, I think, is going to be a big target for us. I do think we are going to go in for him. There's a lot of rumours going around that we're still interested in him. Obviously, it all comes down to price at the end of the day, but I do think we will end up going for him. And we could actually, by the end of the summertime, we could actually see Gahey and Hato both in at the club, depending on sales. That is the main thing, and it all depends on the sales. And this is where it leads into the main topic of conversation for today that I want to cover. And as quite evident on the thumbnail for the show as well, it revolves around our young lads that have come through the youth system, what sort of money they can generate for that. But before I go on to my own piece of it, the guys who are watching, stick your comments into the chat. Let's get a little bit interactive on this, and we'll have a discussion where you see our players going. First one, obviously, that completely springs to mind and is a done deal as of this morning, because I'm currently staring at a picture at him. At Leverkusen, that's Koante. Koante deal is done. He's having his medical, by the looks of it, pretty much right now. And I don't think there's going to be any mishaps with that. So a 35 to 40 million deal for Koante for a player that's come through our youth system, that is all pure profit. That is excellent from the club's business aspect, and is also very, very good contract-wise, because we have that deal where we could buy him back. So if he does actually live up to the potential that he is expected to live up to, a couple of years down the line, he could very well be back at the club. Very, very smart business, in my opinion. Yeah, okay, we'd have to pay more to bring him back, but that's just the way it is. He's had a couple of more years' experience, etc., etc. Hopefully he does get better by that point. I don't see any reason why we couldn't bring him back to the club unless he actually declines when he's over in Germany. Again, I don't really see that happening. I'm not entirely sure how high his ceiling is, potential-wise, but I think we could end up bringing him back, in my opinion. The next one, I think that has got to be covered is, before I come on to the main one, is Tyler Morton. And Tyler Morton is an interesting one. He's had a reasonably decent tournament with the under-21s. He's not been a starter, but he has been in and around the squad. He has played. And we saw a couple of seasons ago how good he can be when he went to Blackburn one season, and then he went to Hull, I think it was, the next season. And he produced the goods really high standard. I was actually expecting him to be used a little bit more last season, but due to the fact that Gravenberch stayed fit for the entire season, again, kind of poo-pooed what sort of Morton was going to bring to the club and was going to bring into the team. Very, very similar style players. And it was just unfortunate, really. He just didn't get that amount of game time. Now, the question is, from his aspect, again, he's got to ask himself, will he stay at the club and just be a bit part player again? Or will he want to stay at the club and get another season on loan and maybe push for a starting slot next season? Or do we sell him now? Bearing in mind, he is another used product. And if I go and find his details on, bear with me for 1 second, transfermarket.com, and see what his status is like. Well, according to transfermarket.com, he's valued at only 7 million euros. But I think Liverpool will get more than that. I think he's worth more than that. He's worth more than the 7 million. Yes, okay, he hasn't got a massive amount of game time around him. I'm just having a look at his stats to see what he has played. So yeah, back in 23-24, he played pretty much a full season for Hull, 3 goals, 5 assists, which is fantastic. Then at Blackburn, he had a full season at Blackburn as well. So he's got a couple of really good seasons of experience in the championship level, which I think is where his level is at the moment. Going into the championship, if we have a look at, say, the championship table, the EFL championship for next season. Nope, that's this season. When you're looking at clubs who are going to be pushing for that promotion spot in the championship next season, you're going to have the likes of Leicester, you're going to have Ipswich again, and Southampton, all teams that went down last season. But you've also got the likes of Blackburn Rovers again. You got Birmingham newly promoted. You got Wrexham newly promoted. Would Wrexham be able to fork out that sort of money for somebody like Tyler Morton? Again, actually, I think Tyler Morton would fit really, really well into a team like Wrexham, who are looking to stabilise in the Championship. I don't think a team like them will be looking for promotion. But that being said, would he slot straight into, say, a Leicester side or an Ipswich side that is looking to bounce back straight away? Excuse me. Sorry, that was the wind again. Bear with me for 2 seconds. I'm going to try and shut that window. Apologies for the interruptions, folks. Wasn't the best thing, but I can't be doing with that all the way through the show. So, yeah, Tyler Morton, I think potentially a Wrexham-style player, but I definitely think that he could fit into somebody like Ipswich or Leicester or Birmingham, even. Birmingham are another one that have got quite a good backing now financially, so they could definitely fork out the money for him. But it all comes down to valuation again. And again, if we get something like 10 to 12 million for him, that's still 10 to 12 million profit. He's another player that came through our youth system, so it's not like we had any outliers on him besides his training costs and his development costs. But it's not like we had to pay a massive fee to another club to get him as a youngster, a bit like we did with Elliot, which I'll come on to in a second. But yeah, Tyler Morton, I think, has got the talent to push for a promotion-pushing club in the Championship. Or, as a final option, maybe even one of the lower clubs in the Premier League, one of the newly promoted clubs, possibly something like Leeds. Again, could fit into that team very, very well. Let me know in the comments what you think the future for Tyler Morton is going to be, because I think it could be quite interesting. And he is a talented player. Again, a young lad, but he just needs to be given that chance. And he has got the ability to do it. So let me know in the comments what you think about that, about Tyler Morton. But we come on to our main guy who I want to discuss. And he's a player who I absolutely love. But I don't think things have worked out quite as well as I would have hoped, or he probably would have hoped either, and that's Harvey Elliot. Now, Harvey Elliot, as I say, he's one of my favourite players in the squad. I think he has been one of the best young talents to come through the youth system, even though we did pick him up from Fulham at the age of 15, 16, whatever it was. I think he's been one of the most exciting youth talents to come through our system and obviously Fulham system in a good long time. We don't actually get that many players who make it through the youth academy. Let's face it, we don't. Trent, Curtis Jones, and then before then, you're talking probably going back to Gerrard. I can't remember off the top of my head, in between Gerrard and Trent, any more players coming through the youth system. And we have a little gem, little being the operative word because he is a small lad, in Harvey Elliot. But what a summertime he has had. He has absolutely lit it up in Slovakia in the under-21 tournament, obviously coming away with a couple of player matches, winning the tournament with England back-to-back, again, beating Germany in the final, and also being named player of the tournament, picking up plenty of assists, plenty of goals, and overall his importance to the England side ultimately made them win the tournament and beating obviously our arch rivals Germany. But where does he fit into a Liverpool side? And that is the biggest question that I think has been asked probably for the last 18 months, if not 2 years. Even in Klopp's last season, second to last season, when Elliot got that injury and he came back in, nobody quite knew where to put him. I don't think Klopp quite knew, and I don't think Slot quite knows either. He's a bit of an enigma where he has all this talent, he has this vision, he has a wand of a left foot, he can finish, he can pass, he can cross, but it's the physical side of things. And when you want somebody that is going to be passing the ball from left to right or right to left, putting little through balls here, setting players up and that, you want somebody who's going to be quick with it as well. And I think that's what lets him down a little bit. It's just his physicality and his speed. But that's not to say that he can't make a success of his career. I think if he got played in a slightly deeper role, initially I think he was brought in, seen as a Salah replacement, so to speak. I think personally he needs to drop deeper. I think he needs to go into a more attacking central midfield role and have a couple of players around him that are going to support him more defensively while he is the main creative outlet. Now, bearing in mind, in our team, we already have the likes of McAllister, Zoboszlai, Gravenberch, Jones, now Wirtz, all in those central areas. That time is going to be even more limited for Elliot. So it presents the question again, what do we do with him? Does he go out on season for a loan? Just for one season to see what happens? Maybe. Or do we have the likes of Brighton, Leipzig, Leverkusen, West Ham, maybe even Spurs or somebody looking at trying to get some more creativity into their own side? Elliot would be a perfect addition for their style of play. I mean, personally, I think Brighton would be the best club for him to go to. I think under Hertzler, he would play amazing football. He would be the focal creative point in that system. And I think he'd work wonders there. Not that I particularly want him to go, but that's my opinion on it. I'm just going to come to a couple of the comments. So, Badro, big up question. Ben Jacobs said that Liverpool want centre-backs aged 18 to 22, but I think we need centre-back experience and they want cheap Gahey. Right, okay, yeah. I see what you're saying there, Badro. And yeah, I do agree that I did read somewhere that their profile of wanting centre backs now is like sort of between the age of 18 and 22 to 23. Gahey is just a little bit outside of that, but Hato definitely fits in that mold. I think both. That's why I said I think both of them come in. I do, but again, it all depends on player sales more than anything else. And I think that is the right model to go with because at the end of the day, if you bring in a player who's going to be 20 years old and can last at the club for another 10 years as a stalwart centre-back and just grow into that, it just makes business sense to get them younger whilst we've got the experience in the squad. And I think that's the model that they want to go with. Right, okay. Fireburn. Some information recently for you. A comment was asked to Isaac in Croatia at a restaurant by a fan. He was asked about Liverpool, and Isaac said, "I don't want to talk about it." Make of this as you wish. That is interesting. But I think looking at that, I mean, okay, somebody coming up to you in a restaurant and asking you a question about a transfer, whether it's happening or not, I think he's probably playing it coy. I think for the fan in me, that's him saying, I can't talk about it because this thing's going on in the background. It is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, he really can't say anything, can he? So, as you say, we have to make of this what we wish. I'm keeping optimistic about that. But back on to Elliot. Right, guys, what do you think Elliot's valuation should be after the summertime tournament that he has had? Now, I know 30 to 40 million was banded around. I'll look at transfer market right now. They value him as of the 30th of May, which is still not updated. I think it gets updated every month. They value him at about 30 million euros. That's a big no-no for me. That is way too cheap for his talent. For me, if the way I look at it, if Chelsea are buying João Pedro from Brighton for 50 million plus, Elliot is just as good as João Pedro, as far as I'm concerned. I'm more than happy to say that and put a stake in the ground for it. Elliot is just the different players, yes, but Elliot is just as good as João Pedro. So if he can go for 50 million, Elliot can go for 50 million. And bear in mind as well, I don't know whether they'll have it on here. Let's just see. I can't. Yeah, it came through the youth. There's nothing on it. I know we paid a fee to Fulham. I don't know whether anybody can remind me what that fee was. I know it was minimal, probably around about 5 to 7 million through the court of arbitration. But I think we'll make a massive profit on him. And at the end of the day, that is what it is. Because if you look at, okay, so let's total this up at the moment. Koante going for, say, 35 million. Say Tyler Morton goes for 10, so that's 45 million in total, and Elliot goes for 50. That's nearly 100 million back That is Verts covered. And we still have our transfer budget on top. Again, there's no reason to think that we can't go and spend another 100, 150 million, 200 million maybe by the end of this summertime. Now that is exciting. Badro, what striker do you think we signed this summer? I'll come to that in a second. And Damo's on the chat as well. Elliot should be at least 50 million with what he can offer a team. Exactly what I said. Completely agree. 50 million plus, as I say, if somebody like João Pedro, who had a good season for Brighton, but not an absolutely amazing season, and no doubt he is a talented player, if he can go to Chelsea for 50 million, then Elliot can definitely go to Brighton for 50 million. Without a doubt. I fully believe that. And, well, that's the optimal question. What sort of price do we get for Nunez instead? Like I said at the start of the show, I think the valuations are way out. Obviously, Liverpool, I think we're looking between 60 and 70. Napoli, we're looking between 40 and 45. I think if we can meet in the middle, around about 50 to 55 million, that keeps everybody happy at the end of the day. And you know what? Like I said, for Nunez, we were never, ever going to get that 85 million. Not a chance. Not a chance. But 50 to 55, I'd quite happily go for that, which actually, if you add that on to say if we did sell Morton, Elliot, Koante, add Nunez onto that, that's 150 million back in transfer fees, plus what we've already brought in transfer fees as well. I've added the Koante one in that, so I think that's about another 35 million. So we've already brought in about, if all those players go, we've already brought in about 170 to 180 million in transfer revenue. And we've spent about, so basically our net spend's around about 50 million, which is ridiculous business, but it's the model that we go for, and it seems to be working. It really does seem to be working because, like I say, we could go back out and spend 100 million on Isak, another 30, 40 million on Gahey, possibly. I'll come to the pricing on that as well because that seems to be a bit of a sticking point. And maybe a few other players. Who knows? Maybe even that DM that we've always been wanting. Who knows? Let's see, demo. All right, okay. So we paid Fulham about 1.5 million. I thought it was higher than that, but okay. 1.5 million, but we paid to Fulham. And if we sell them for 50, that's an amazing amount of profit. Absolutely outstanding amount of profit. Really, really is. Let's go over to the wonderful world of Twitter to see if there is any other updates coming through. Let's have a quick look. So, quick look. Nothing coming through as yet, besides the Gahey stuff. Now, the Gahey stuff I alluded to a little bit before, but there does seem to be a bit of a sticking point on his transfer fee. Now, Palace are, speaking of which, Fireburn as well. Gahey looking close, talks are ongoing. I don't think the contract thing is going to be an issue. I don't think the game time is going to be an issue. I think the transfer fee is going to be an issue. Now, bearing in mind, he only has 12 months left on his contract, and Palace will want to milk that for as much money as they possibly can. But Liverpool aren't stupid. Hughes and Edwards aren't stupid. They'll know how much his contract is worth at the moment. They'll know how much, in player terms, how much he is worth at the moment. So let's have a quick look. Well, according to transfer market, it's about 45 million euros, which works out about 38 to 40 million pound. And I think Palace were quoted as something like wanting about 45 to 50, and Liverpool only want to pay 25. So again, a little bit like the Nunez deal with Napoli, I think we're going to end up meeting in the middle. If they want about 45, we're offering 25, 32 and a half, something like that. Would you guys be happy with that for a player who's only got a year left on his contract? But bearing in mind he is their club captain and probably their most valuable asset at the same time. The thing that Palace have to be careful with is that they don't scupper a transfer entirely and lose him for a free next season. We know how that feels. So it would suck for them if that happens. So I do think a deal gets done. I don't think it gets done for 25. I don't think it gets done for 25. But I do think round about the 32 to 35 mark will probably be acceptable, to say the least. No. Isn't too good, to be honest. The hype's were. I don't know about that, CJ. To be fair, I like Gahey. I think it's difficult for players to stand out when they're in lower ranking teams. And that's no disrespect to Palace. They are where they are. We are where we are. Gahey has been a standout centre back for them for the last couple of years by far. And if we go on to let's have a little data comparison. So let's have a look at the players. Hang on a second. Bear with me for a second while I load something up. Centre backs. Mark. Right. Okay. And then we'll have a look at. Now, this season, he has been he's played a lot more minutes this season, actually, and his overall defensive actions have been a lot more flushed out this season. So he's been a lot more solid compared to last season, where he was missing out on aerial duels a lot. He was missing out on defensive actions a lot and progressive passes. But this year, he's become a lot more well-rounded. His aerial duels is up. His duels are a lot more level. His defensive actions are a lot higher. But his progressive passing, as well, the style of passing that Van Dijk likes to do, he's passing it around a lot more and with a lot more accuracy. Yes, he is still only 24. He has a lot to learn. But coming into a Liverpool side with the best centre-back in the world in Van Dijk, he's only going to learn good things. And if he is this good now, and if I compare him to, say, let's have a look. How do you put it in? Right, there we go. So say I compare him to Van Dijk for this season. Well, yeah, he's got a lot to make up for. But the thing is, Van Dijk has got 10 years experience on him. That's what you have to take into consideration as well. And you say he is a young centre-back. He is only 24. He is still learning. He's not in the prime of his career yet. If he can learn anything off anybody, it would be Van Dijk. So I think this would be a really, really good opportunity, not only for him, but for the club as well. We could end up getting an absolute baller of a centre-back who could take over Van Dijk's legacy. I do think he could be that good. He could end up taking over Van Dijk's legacy and just carrying on and end up being club captain. That's where I think it could end up going. Going back to the comments, Badro, do you think Liverpool is waiting for Isak? 120 million, we get Alvarez easily. Well, I do think Isak is our top target. I do think we may end up holding out. But I did notice something actually on Sky Sports News this morning as they were talking about Liverpool transfers, incomes and outgoings and all that sort of stuff. And one of the things that one of the reporters highlighted quite well was the fact that Slot doesn't always use a striker. He favoured a lot of the false nine formation, so going 4-2-4 with no striker up front made things a little bit different. Again, we could be patient and wait out another year and not get a striker. Yes, that is a risky move, but I still think we have enough goals in the team, especially with Salah and now Wirtz coming in and a couple of positional changes with other attacking players. We still got goals in the team. There's no doubt about that. Not having a striker is very risky because it limits your options, but also going into that false nine formation, I think it could work. Alvarez, yeah, he's another really good striker, but I still think Isak is the number one target. I still think it gets done this summer. It's going to be expensive, but I would not be surprised as well if we didn't get it done this summer, waited another year, and ended up getting him next summer. That's a possibility as well. CJ, Isaac would be worth every penny, if you look into the market. Sesko worth, well, yeah. Yeah, if Leipzig are valuing Sesko, or Sechko, however you pronounce it, between 70 and 80 million, Frankfurt are valuing Ekitike at like 100 million. Isak is definitely in that price market. And I do honestly think we get him. I really do. Let's have a look. Jimbo. Not forgetting Van Dijk was at Southampton. Yeah, that is another very, very fair point. Van Dijk was at Southampton. We paid 75 million for him, and the rest, as they say, is history. We can't look at this Gahey deal and go, nah, because he plays for Palace. Van Dijk, when we bought him, was roughly around about that same age. And look what he turned into. I'm not saying Gahey will turn into that, but there is every possibility he has the potential to be that. I think it's a no-brainer, and also homegrown as well, so it helps with the registration side of things. And Alvarez has stated he does not want to return to the UK. I haven't actually seen that, so but then again, I am not surprised. Spanish-speaking country, so he's probably happy there anyway. Damo Van Dijk was a similar. Yep, indeed he was. And this is where it comes into it. So we have. Let me go and have a look at. Bear for 2 seconds. Liverpool player sales this summer. Okay. So, sales-wise, at the moment, I'm trying to find it now. My apologies. Guys, I did it all in together. Don't like that. Apologies for this, guys. Just trying to find. Well, obviously, we've had Kelleher leave the club. We've got Morton that's potentially leaving the club. We've got Koante that has left the club as of today, more than likely. We've got Elliot, who's potentially on the move. We've got Nunez, who's potentially on the move as well. Are there any other players that you could see leaving for a decent amount of money? I think there are a few others in the squad that could end up potentially going as well. Let's not forget, there is another player, and I know he's not under 21s, but we still have Kirkes coming in, which means we've got Robbo and Tsimikas. Which one of them goes? Because it looks like Atletico Madrid has sorted out their left-back issue with Ruggeri from Atalanta. So, to me, that doesn't mean Robertson's going to Atletico Madrid, which then brings it back onto Tsimikas. Tsimikas will have to leave as well. And again, that could bring in another 20-odd million, 20 to 30 million. I think that's what he's valued at the moment. So, yeah, Tsimikas or Robbo end up getting some more money in for them as well, plus a few other loan deals and things like that. I think we are going to rake in a lot of money, which will give us a lot of money to spend again. But is there any other players? Actually, I'm going to ask you guys, is there any other players that have caught your eye and think would fit into the squad straight away? And I'm not talking about the likes of Gahey or Hatto that have been linked with us. Any DMs that could come into it. Any other strikers or attacking midfielders that could potentially come in. Say Diaz does leave for Saudi Arabia. Who do we bring in as a replacement for him? Because we would have to bring in another replacement to cover that left side. So otherwise, I think it would leave the squad a little bit too strapped. Or do we carry on with youth and let Diaz go for that 85 million? Comes in as an amazing amount of profit over what we paid for him, which actually I cannot remember for the life of me what we paid for him. Let's have a quick look and see. Oh, God, here we go. I'm trying to find him now. Right, found him. Breakthrough. Right, okay. So we signed Diaz for £37.5 million, €45 million. If we sell him for €85 million, that's a 40 million profit. And then all that goes back into the kitty. Do we go out and get another left winger, or do we bring through Engamoa? I think Engamoa is ready to be pushing for that, not starting spot, but pushing to be in the first team squad after the season that he had last season, coming into the FA Cup a little bit, and then having an amazing season for, well, personally for the youth side, even though the youth side didn't do too well last season. Let's have a look. Badro. If they don't get Isak this summer, do you think they'll gamble on another No, I don't think that is. Obviously, the profile for the centre backs is different. They're looking for 18 to 22-year-olds. I don't think they're looking for a project striker. They're looking for somebody who can fit straight in, straight away, if they're available. That is the problem, if they're available. CJ, absolutely sign Angelo Stillifant. Definitely. I'm in full agreement with that. And he has a release clause of about 40 million euros. So he would be an absolute steal. And he's got incredible numbers for the last couple of years at Stuttgart. So I am in complete agreement there, CJ. Angelo Stiller would be the one pick for me. Jimbo, I think we'll get around 150 million for dispersals, giving us a bit more. But yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, around 150 to 200 million. We'll say 150 to 175, I'd say, which replenishes our transfer budget and just makes us look even more financially frugal more than anything else. Again, this is what it comes down for, like, sort of the price I was saying for Elliot. Online, and they're saying like sort of between 30 to 40 million euros. No way. Elliot, for me, has to be a 50 million plus. And when you look at some of the other players that have been going for that price, prime example, João Pedro, like I said before, going to Chelsea for 50 million. Elliot, exactly the same price. He has to be. And that will be near enough all pure profit again. So from the club standpoint, it's ka-ching time. It is absolute ka-ching time, and they will be rolling in it. And that's where I think, I don't know if you guys remember back a couple of weeks ago, there were comments made by FSG and Slot and that, and some of the players as well, that once the Wirtz deal was done and the Kirkes deal was done, that was kind of like a phase one. They wanted to get those 3-4 players through the door, early doors, and then they can concentrate on player sales, bringing the money back in, and then they go hard for the next targets. That, I think, is exactly how it's going to play out as well. I really do. CJ Elliott's 22. Is 22 or 23? I don't think he's too far off his 23rd. I really don't. And also CJ, Rodrigo over Kudus. Well, I wouldn't say no to Rodrigo either. Say, for example, they're not happy about bringing Engamoa through as a backup to Gakpo, and they wanted to bring in another player to replace Diaz. Rodrigo would definitely be a go-to, but he'd be expensive as well. You'd be looking at probably 80 to 100 million for him. So you'd be looking potentially at 200 million on 2 players in Isak and Rodrigo. That's a difficult one. That is a difficult one. I don't see that happening. Personally, I think if we do go for another left winger, it wouldn't be so much a project player, but with Gakpo being 25, 26, Engamoa only being 16 to 17, I could see Liverpool going for somebody who would be round about the 20 to 22 mark, who would back up Gakpo, be just ahead of Engamoa, and they could all rotate between the 3 of them. That's the way I'd see it happening. But let's not forget, actually, I have just remembered about one player who's been completely forgotten and has had a really good season last season, actually. And that's Ben Doak. He had a really good season at Middlesbrough. What does the future hold for him? And when I say he had a really good season, he had a really, really good season, actually. Let me just get his stats up. So at Middlesbrough, he played 24 games, 3 goals, 7 assists. And bear in mind, he's only 18. So he's got his whole future ahead of him. Is he another one that we hold on to for a couple of years? Develop more by sending him out on loan, a couple of more loans to see how he develops that way? Is he somebody that stays with the squad to back up Salah, maybe, for this season? Or do we sell him now? Bear in mind, we got him for absolute peanuts. I think we got him from Celtic for 600,000. And now his valuation is up between 10 and 20 million. So again, amazing profit. And I would not be surprised if he did get sold this summer, because that's just the way the club model works. And it's extra money to go into the kitty. What do you guys think? Do you think Ben Doak will actually stay or go out on loan, or do you think he's going to be transferred out? Obviously, I've heard or seen rumours that Everton are looking at him. Not many of those transfers happen going between Liverpool and Everton, so that'll be interesting if it does come off. But I don't think Everton could afford him, to be fair. Jimbo, if we sell Elliot that cheap, then we need to have a sell-on clause in that. Yeah, I think so. If we did go for it cheaper than that, we'd have to back ourselves up with extra clauses being put in there, maybe even a buyback clause as well, like we did with Koante. That's a possibility. Badro, you're thinking Rodrigo between 80 to 90 million? Yeah, I'd agree with that. In fact, let's go back to transfer market, shall we, and see if we can find out. Rodrigo, I think that's how it is. Yep. Well, currently on transfer market, he is valued at 90 million euros, so about 80 million quid. So there we have it. That'll settle that one. To be honest, that's why I'm asking the question. I don't actually. I've seen the rumors. I don't know whether they are actively trying to sell Doak or not, which I'd be kind of surprised at, to be fair, because I think he has got a lot of talent. Me personally, I'd like to see him go out on loan for another season or stay. I don't particularly want to see him sold just yet, depending on how this season goes. But that's the club's decision, and also the player's decision. He's had that taste now of first-team football at Middlesbrough, even though he picked up a couple of niggly injuries last year. He's going to want that again. So I think another championship loan maybe a newly promoted side again, a bit like similar to Tyler Morton, going to Leeds or somewhere like that. That may work out. And CJ, what you got for us? Koante plus 20 million for Barkler. Ooh. Actually, that's not a bad shout, that. That's not a bad shout, that at all. Koante plus 20 million for Barkler. Well, Koante doesn't want to stay. So, we've been led to believe that he doesn't want to stay and he doesn't want to sign a new contract. I always thought that he would end up leaving to go back to Paris anyway, but who knows? But yeah, that's actually not a bad shout at all, I think. And Damo's writing in, Liverpool are willing to sell Elliot, then selling Doak seems likely. Yeah. I don't particularly want to see either of them go, but it's their careers. They've got to do what's best for them. And I think what is best for Elliot and Doak at the moment would be to move on to newer clubs to get that first-team football and progress in the career. But I do think if we've done the same with Koante and putting in a buyback price, we'd have to do the same with Elliot and Doak as well. It just makes business sense at the end of the day. It really does. Excuse me while I have a quick drink. But I think that's it, folks. We're up to about 43 minutes here. So I'm going to leave it there. Keep your comments coming in. Make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. And also one shameless plug for myself. I do have my own channel. It is not a chat channel. It is a gaming channel. It revolves solely around Football Manager. So if you go and find my details down below, Odin Whitehair Gaming, go and check my channel out. I'm pushing on, well, hopefully going to be over 400 subs by the end of the week. Go and check it out. Have a look at my videos and all that good stuff. As for the Talking Reds, well, thank you very much. As I say, we're on 781 subs. Make sure you sub to the channel. We're pushing hard for the 1K now, and we're racing there. We are absolutely racing there. And it's all down to you guys for watching and liking and subscribing and commenting. Thank you very much for this. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Or actually, I'll see you next Monday.